Hi, I'm Steve Poftak, General Manager of the MBTA. July 26 marks the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, our country's most significant legislation focused on the civil rights of people with disabilities. Since its signing in 1990, the ADA has sought to eliminate discrimination against people with disabilities in a number of fundamental aspects of our lives, including transportation. I'd like to take some time to reflect on how the ADA has helped to shape the MBTA, as well as our plans for continuously improving accessibility system-wide. The MBTA's first foray into providing accessible service actually began in the 1970s. Our very first elevator went into service at Quincy Center Station in 1971. And in 1977, lift-equipped vans began providing door-to-door paratransit service in and around Brookline. But with the signing of the ADA in 1990, expectations for public transportation providers like the MBTA were clarified and called for access to all parts of our service, from accessible stations and buses to reliable stop announcements and employee trainings to full coverage of our service area with paratransit service. Just as importantly, because of the ADA, our riders had the ability to hold us accountable for providing inclusive service. And despite having made some progress since 1990, in 2002 they did just that. A group of riders with disabilities, along with the Boston Center for Independent Living, filed a class action lawsuit citing numerous violations of the ADA, including broken elevators, a lack of accessible buses, and employees who are not equipped to assist riders as needed. This lawsuit led to a comprehensive settlement agreement in 2006 and a fundamental shift to the way we think about accessibility on our system. Today, I'm joined by three individuals who have each played an instrumental role in developing our system-wide accessibility program and are here to reflect on the progress that's been made as well as the work ahead. Please join me in welcoming Joanne Daniels-Feingold, the lead named plaintiff in the 2002 class action lawsuit against the T, Tara Mahdi-Doucette, a senior attorney at Greater Boston Legal Services and lead counsel on the T lawsuit, and the MBTA's own Laura Brailsford, the Assistant General Manager for System-Wide Accessibility. Thank you all for joining me today. Tara, before filing the class action lawsuit in 2002, you spent years listening to riders and hearing about their experiences as people with disabilities and their experiences on the MBTA. Can you talk about some of the themes that you heard and also talk about how the existence of the ADA affected your ability to move the case forward?
Thank you, Steve. The idea of the lawsuit originated with a series of community lawyering trainings I did in the early 1990s for the disability community. At every session, a few people missed the trainings or showed up late because of the problems they consistently encountered when trying to use the MBTA's buses and trains. One of the primary motivations for the lawsuit was the MBTA lack of accessible service, and the people with disabilities were upset that the accessibility equipment on buses really functioned, and when it did, bus operators often lacked the knowledge and willingness to provide service to customers with disabilities. We saw, and just by doing these seminars, that the problems threatened passengers' safety. It caused delays. It prevented people who were blind, deaf, or use a wheelchair from accessing public transportation. And then, 12 years later, since the ADA passed in 1990, we filed in the US District Court our complaint. We allege that the failure of the MBTA to provide equal access to public transportation services violates Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So the named plaintiffs in the lawsuit didn't seek any money, and the goal of the lawsuit was to ensure the MBTA just complied with the federal mandates of the ADA and to make its buses, trains, and stations accessible to everyone. We have been working collaboratively and successfully ever since 2006 with the MBTA. The ADA has set the platform for all of this to happen. So I'm very pleased and very, very proud to acknowledge that the MBTA is now a national model for what an accessible transportation system should look like.
Thank you, Tara. Let me move to Laura. From your perspective, how has the ADA and the settlement agreement driven change at the MBTA?
Issues regarding access are now discussed in every major policy decision, every major design decision, whether we're remodeling a station or whether we're talking about a policy to keep employees and riders safe during the pandemic. with our riders, we've made a lot of progress over just the last 15 years, never mind the last 30 years. For example, back in 1990, right as the ADA was getting signed, the T had 25 accessible subway stations. Today, we have over 120. Today, our elevators system-wide are up and running over 99% of the time. Our bus fleet is also 100% accessible now, and all of our buses are equipped with a ramp at the front of the bus. We also now have dual mode technology on all of our vehicles, all of our new vehicles, and in all of our stations. So information is shared both audibly and visually. All of our frontline staff are trained on what to expect in terms of providing and ensuring accessible service. And finally, I think most importantly, the ADA, both the ADA and the settlement agreement have provided our riders a mechanism for getting engaged with us.
Great. Thank you, Laura. I also wanted to talk with Joanne. Joanne, maybe you could talk a little bit about what the 30th anniversary of the ADA means to you, and also talk about what have your experiences been on the MBTA prior to the lawsuit, and how have things changed, and then what are some of the improvements you'd like to see going forward?
Before the settlement, lifts didn't work frequently. Not only did lifts not work frequently, but I lived on a route that was not a dedicated lift line, so a lift bus had to be requested at a specific time in order for you to get service, and sometimes those lifts didn't work. There were also times that I was left on a bus and having to go to the end of the line and come back to my stop and need a repair there because I couldn't get off a bus. We were dedicated to trying to fix things here. We wanted, as what we requested, that the settlement went to improving the system. $300+ million went into fixing what was broken in the system. But it didn't just mean hardware. It also meant retraining people. We were involved in helping to make the new bus rules, the new train operator rules, so that there was no disconnect between the employees and the passengers.
Laura, in the context of the pandemic, is there more that the MBTA can do to accommodate passengers with disabilities? And what should riders expect to experience as the MBTA continues to invest in the system?
So in terms of the pandemic, all of our customers still are going to need assistance at some points. And figuring out the right ways for employees to feel comfortable providing that assistance while social distancing will be key. I think in terms of other accessibility progress, the next few years are really exciting. We have some major station upgrades in the pipeline. We're also working on rebuilding a couple hundred bus stops to make them more accessible.
I want to thank each of you for joining me today and sharing your perspectives. It was great to hear your views on what the MBTA has accomplished and what the MBTA has ahead of it in terms of work.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
I'd also like to add one closing thought. While we know that improvements to accessibility are essential to ensuring that our riders with disabilities can use the MBTA safely and confidently, we also know that, thanks to the ADA and our riders who have held us accountable and continue to partner with us, that the MBTA is a better, more accessible, and reliable system for all of our riders. With that in mind, we celebrate this important anniversary. If you're interested in learning more about accessibility at the T and how you can get involved, please visit mbta.com/accessibility. I wish to close today by reminding viewers that as Massachusetts navigates Phase 3 of reopening, it's very important that we not become complacent. Face coverings are required on all MBTA vehicles and stations, and we encourage you to practice safe distancing when possible. Thank you for watching today.